He promised never to fall in love with her, but one kiss changed everything. The whispering began before Maya even stepped into the room. It always did. The hotel ballroom gleamed with polished chandeliers, gold accents, and freshly pressed linen. Everything meant to impress the elite families of Crestview Heights. Men in tailored suits and women draped in designer silk moved like a synchronized wave, clinking glasses and exchanging superficial smiles. Maya Torres entered quietly from the back, wearing the standard uniform of the catering crew, black slacks, white shirt, hair tied back neatly. She carried a silver tray of drinks and kept her gaze low, exactly as the service manager had instructed. But even without looking up, she felt the eyes on her, the judging eyes, the I know your place eyes. Maya, table 7 needs champagne refills, her supervisor whispered, handing her another tray. On it, Maya replied with a soft smile. She was used to it, being invisible and judged at the same time. She had been working double shifts for months to pay for her mother's medical treatments. Her life outside these glossy walls was simple, quiet, and heavy with responsibility. But she never complained. She worked with dignity, with a kind of resilience that people rarely recognize until it was too late to apologize for underestimating her. Tonight, however, the tension in the room felt different, because tonight was the engagement gala of the city's wealthiest family, the Aldridges. And standing near the center of the ballroom, commanding the attention of everyone around him, was Ethan Aldridge. He was the kind of man who made people pause mid-sentence. Tall, sharply built, with dark hair style like he just stepped out of a magazine cover. He had an easy confidence, a reputation for being brilliant in business but cold in relationships. His father owned half the real estate in Crestview Heights. His mother sat on multiple national boards. The Aldridge name alone carried a weight that could crush most people's entire futures. But that wasn't the reason Maya couldn't look away. It was because she knew him, or rather, she knew the boy he used to be. Years ago, before the expensive suits and the last name became a brand, they had sat together in a dusty public school classroom. They weren't friends. They weren't enemies. They were quiet classmates who shared the same love for books, the same dream of escaping their rough neighborhood. But life had separated them completely. He went up. She stayed behind. He wouldn't recognize her now, and she didn't expect him to. People like Ethan didn't look back at the lives they once lived. They didn't look down either at people like her. "Watch it, sweetheart," a woman's cold voice snapped. Maya jolted as a well-dressed lady bumped her shoulder, causing a champagne flute to spill onto the marble floor. Gasps followed. A few guests stared with a disgusted expression, as though Maya had shattered the world's last piece of precious crystal. I'm sorry," Maya whispered, bending down to clean the spill. "Of course you're sorry," the woman scoffed loudly. "These people never know how to handle simple tasks." Laughter rippled through a few nearby guests. Heat crawled up Maya's neck. She kept her eyes down, even though humiliation burned in her throat. Moments like this always hit the same bruise inside her, the bruise that came from being pushed around by people who mistook wealth for superiority. As she cleaned, a pair of polished black dress shoes stopped in front of her. She froze. Ethan Aldridge. Her heart pounded. She could feel the weight of recognition stirring inside her, but not from him, from her. Memories she had buried years ago flickered behind her eyes. The shy boy who shares lunch on days she forgot hers, who sat beside her during reading hour, who once said, "Promise me you'll never let people walk over you." A childish promise, long forgotten by everyone except her. Her hand trembled slightly as she wiped the last of the champagne from the floor. Ethan looked down at her, not cruelly but distantly, professionally, politely, the way rich people looked at staff, as if she were nobody. He had no idea who she was. "Clean this up quickly," he said, his tone neutral, businesslike. "We're about to bring out the press for photographs." Maya nodded without looking up. Her throat tightened and she fought the sting in her eyes. "You didn't have to talk to her like that." Another voice chimed in, a much sharper one. Ethan turned. His fiancée, Victoria Sinclair, stepped forward in her glittering silver gown. She was a definition of privilege, tall, elegant, and stunning, with a smile so perfectly polished it could cut like a blade. She placed a hand on Ethan's arm. She's making a mess during our engagement event, Victoria said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. Do we not hire people who can follow basic instructions anymore? Maya's fingers tightened around the cloth. The humiliation grew deeper, more personal, crueler. Ethan spoke quietly to Victoria, but Maya heard every word. Just leave it, she staffed. It doesn't matter. Those words, she staffed. It doesn't matter. Like a slap without a hand. Maya's chest tightened. She rose slowly, clutching the tray against her sternum. Her eyes met Ethan's, just for a fleeting second. Nothing. Not a spark of recognition. Not a hint of softness. Not a memory of the two children they once were. Just a distant coolness. He had become everything society wanted him to be. Powerful, untouchable, untethered from the people who used to be part of his beginnings. Maya inhaled shakily, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Excuse me," she whispered, stepping away to return to the service area. She didn't see Ethan's eyes linger on her for an extra second. She didn't hear the slight catch in his breath, the faint confusion, the flicker of something familiar he couldn't place. She didn't notice the way he frowned, as if bothered by the sharp tone his fiancée had used. All she felt was the weight of the evening pressing on her ribs. She placed the tray down in the quiet hallway behind the ballroom, leaning against the wall, and pressed a hand to her chest. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let a single one fall. Not here, not in front of them, not after everything she had fought to survive. In that quiet moment, she whispered to herself, "I don't matter to them, but I matter to me, and one day they'll see." But fate wasn't done with her yet, not even close, because only 10 minutes later, while Maya was carrying another tray toward the ballroom, she collided with someone rounding the corner at high speed. The tray tilted, the glasses wobbled, and before she could catch them, strong hands grabbed the tray and steadied it. She looked up, straight into Ethan Aldridge's storm-gray eyes. This time he stared, really stared, as if something in her face had punched through 15 years of memory. "Maya Torres." His voice shook, her breath caught. He remembered. In that moment, everything changed. Ending line. The moment he remembered her changed everything. But not everyone was happy about it. For a moment, the world shrank to a narrow corridor and two pairs of eyes trying to understand what destiny had just dropped between them. Ethan's grip tightened slightly around the tray he caught, but not out of anger, out of shock. Out of recognition hitting him like a bolt of lightning after years of forgetting where he came from. Maya's breath trembled in her chest as she stared up at him, unable to hide the swirl of emotions inside her. Disbelief, gratitude, a piercing ache, and something she hadn't expected, resentment. "Maya," he repeated, softer this time. "Maya Torres? It's really you." She stepped back instinctively, reclaiming the tray. Her voice wavered, but she controlled it with every ounce of dignity she had left. "Yes," she said quietly. "It's me." Ethan blinked, his expression melting from cool detachment into something far more complex. Something human. I didn't recognize you out there. I didn't think." His voice trailed off as guilt slid into his features. The way he had spoken to her earlier flickered between them like a shadow. Maya forced a small, professional smile. "It's okay, Mr. Aldridge. You were busy." "Mr. Aldridge?" he repeated, as if the title offended him more than her discomfort. "Since when don't you call me?" "People change," Maya said softly. "They grow up. They become who life needs them to be." The words held a quiet power. For the first time, Ethan really looked at her. Not as staff, not as an inconvenience, but as someone from a world he'd abandoned long ago. Her dark hair framed her face in soft waves despite being tied back, and her eyes, those same eyes he remembered from childhood, were deeper now, wiser, tired, yet holding fire beneath the surface. He opened his mouth to say something, anything, but a sharp, icy voice interrupted. "Ethan!" Maya stiffened. Victoria stood behind him, heels clicking like a judge delivering a verdict. Her expression was a perfect blend of suspicion and entitlement as she took in the scene. Maya too close, Ethan looking too concerned, and a moment hanging in the air that clearly didn't involve her. "What's going on?" Victoria asked, her chin lifting slightly. Ethan stepped back, clearing his throat. I just helped her with a tray. She almost dropped it. Victoria's eyes narrowed. And you needed to hold a conversation about it? Maya lowered her gaze immediately. She knew her place, at least in Victoria's eyes. Apologies, ma'am. I'll get back to work. Do that, Victoria snapped. But Ethan's sharp tone cut across hers. Victoria, that's enough. The entire corridor froze. Victoria's eyes widened. No one spoke to her that way. Not publicly. Not even Ethan. Maya took a step back, clutching the tray to her chest, wishing she could disappear. She had no intention of causing conflict. Not with people who held so much more power than she did. It's fine, she murmured quickly. Please, both of you, it's fine. But when she turned to leave, Ethan called out softly. Maya. She paused. Can we talk later? Just for a minute. It's been so long. Victoria's jaw tensed. Why would you need to speak with her? She's staff. The word sliced Maya open again. Ethan exhaled slowly, the same frustration from earlier simmering in him. Victoria, she's an old classmate. We grew up together. The shock on Victoria's face was priceless, but not for the right reasons. She grew up with you? Victoria repeated incredulously, her voice dripping with disbelief. Her? A servant girl? Maya's throat tightened painfully. She waited for Ethan to correct her, to defend her, to say anything that would soften the blow. But he hesitated. Too long. Far too long. Maya turned away before he could speak, her heart cracking in a way she didn't expect. Excuse me, she whispered, and briskly walked down the hall. This time, Ethan didn't stop her. Maybe because he was torn. Maybe because he was ashamed. Maybe because her presence awakened parts of his past he had spent years burying under wealth, expectations, and polished lies. Whatever the reason, Maya felt the sting of it all the way back to the service room. The hallway was empty except for the soft hum of refrigerators and the faint clatter of other servers preparing the next course. Maya set down the tray with shaking hands and leaned against the counter, her heartbeat loud enough to drown out the world. Why had he hesitated? Why had she expected anything different? She closed her eyes, but the memories refused to stay quiet. The boy who used to sit beside her in Mrs. Colton's class. The boy who gave her his extra sandwich without asking why she never had lunch. The boy who stood in front of 3 older kids and said, "Don't touch her. She's my friend." Friend. Such a simple word. So powerful in a world that constantly tried to tell her she was alone. But that boy was gone. He had become Ethan Aldridge, the man who didn't even recognize her until he stared long enough. The man who let someone call her a servant girl and said nothing. Maya wiped her eyes. No tears. Not here. Not now. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and returned to the ballroom. The atmosphere inside was even more suffocating than before. Guests laughed a little too loudly, posed for photos, and raised champagne glasses in celebration of a love that Maya could see lacked depth, warmth, or sincerity. As she moved the crowd, she overheard whispers about the incident. Did you see that girl almost ruin the champagne display? She looked nervous, probably her first event at a place like this. These workers should stay out of the way. They ruin the ambience. Each whisper pressed into her chest, but she kept moving, posture straight, step steady, until she reached table 7. A group of older women glanced her up and down, their eyes filled with the kind of judgment that came from a lifetime of privilege. She looks familiar, one of them murmured. Is she from the Aldridge Foundation program? No, another replied. She's clearly hired help. A shame. Pretty girl, but in the wrong world. Maya smiled politely as she refilled their glasses, pretending their words didn't cut. But as she stepped away, a voice spoke behind her. Maya, please wait. She didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Ethan. She stopped, but kept her gaze on the tray in her hands. You don't have to say anything, Ethan. It's all right. No, he said firmly, stepping in front of her. So she had to look at him. It's not all right. I shouldn't have allowed. It's part of the job, she interrupted softly. People talk. People assume. People judge. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be, he replied, his voice low and heavy with guilt. Maya blinked slowly, breathing deeply to steady herself. What do you want from me, Ethan? He hesitated, and his answer was not what she expected. I want to know what happened to you. She swallowed. Life happened, the kind you don't photograph. His eyes softened, and for the first time, she saw something real, a crack in the armor he'd built around his heart. Maya, if I had known you were here. But you didn't, she whispered. And that's okay. No, he insisted gently, stepping closer. It's not okay. You were important to me once. Her heart twisted painfully. Once, a small, sad smile formed on her lips. And now, what am I now? Ethan opened his mouth, but no answer came. Because he didn't know. Because he wasn't allowed to know. Not with Victoria watching him like a hawk. Not with the elites expecting him to behave a certain way. Not with the life he had built on a foundation of distance, polish, and carefully curated walls. Before he could respond, Victoria's sharp voice pierced a moment. Ethan, I need you for the press photos. Now. Maya stepped back immediately. Duty before humanity. As always, Ethan looked between her and Victoria, caught, torn, and frustrated. But he went. He always went. And as Maya watched him walk away, she realized something with quiet, devastating clarity. He remembered her now, but he didn't know her. Not anymore. And she wasn't sure she wanted him to. But fate wasn't done with them yet. Not even close. The night that exposed who he really was and who she refused to become. Maya tried her best to disappear into the crowd as the engagement photos began. Cameras flashed like lightning storms against the polished marble, capturing Ethan and Victoria smiling like a couple in a glossy magazine advertisement. The perfect facade, the perfect pairing, the perfect illusion. Maya stood near the back, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres, convincing herself that none of it mattered, that whatever tiny spark flickered between her and Ethan meant nothing. She had a life outside this ballroom, a fragile one, a hard one, but one that belonged to her. Across the room, Ethan's eyes kept drifting toward her. Maya noticed once, then twice, then so many times she had to force herself not to look back. Each time their eyes met, his expression shifted, softened, like something long buried was clawing its way back into the light. But every time he took a step toward her, Victoria's perfectly manicured hand tightened around his arm, dragging him back into the spotlight. Ethan Aldridge belonged to her world now, a world of expectation, status, and image control. And Maya? She was a threat to that world, without ever lifting a finger. The whisper that started it all. Halfway through the event, Maya made her way to the staff service door to grab more trays. As she passed a group of young socialites, their whispers floated to the air like poison. Did you hear? The catering girl was talking to Ethan earlier. No. Seriously. Yes. Victoria nearly exploded. Ugh. These people always try to climb higher than their station. Maya paused mid-step. Their station. She wanted to keep walking. She wanted to prove their cruelty didn't touch her. But then one voice, shrill and mocking, added, and look at her. She probably came from a broken home. Something inside Maya snapped. She turned, tray still in hand, and spoke with quiet firmness. You know nothing about my home. The group blinked, startled at the help dared to speak. One girl tilted her head in cold amusement. Oh, did we wake the servant? Careful, sweetheart, you don't want to lose your job. People like you don't get many chances. Maya's heartbeat thudded in her ears. She wanted to tell them about her mother's illness, about working double shifts to keep the medical bills from drowning her, about dreams she had set aside to survive. But she didn't owe them her story. She owed them nothing. So she exhaled slowly and said, respect is free. Try using it sometime. Gasps erupted around them. The socialites looked outraged. How dare she talk back? But before they could respond, a deep voice cut through the tension. Maya. Ethan. He had seen the whole thing. His expression was unreadable. Part shock, part anger, but not at her. He looked at the women with a tight jaw and cold eyes. That's enough, he said sharply. You don't speak to my guests or my staff that way. Your staff. The word stung Maya more than the insults ever could. She turned away before he could see her expression crack. He followed her. She reached the quiet hallway near the service station when she heard footsteps rushing after her. Maya, wait. She kept walking. Maya, I'm talking to you. She stopped only when his hand gently circled her wrist, not possessive, not forceful, but desperate. She turned slowly. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to let a single tear fall in front of him. Let me go, she whispered. Ethan released her instantly, but he didn't step back. I heard what they said to you, he began. And Maya's voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut marble. That's normal for people like me, right? We get used to being treated like furniture. No, he said, shaking his head. No, that's not what I meant. They shouldn't talk to you like that. Maya's laugh was soft, bitter. You didn't stop Victoria earlier. He froze. Maya didn't raise her voice, not once, but every word struck with perfect accuracy. You didn't stop the women at table 7 from muttering about the hired help. You didn't say anything when they judged me just for being here. And earlier, her voice cracked. You let her call me a servant girl, Ethan. He flinched. She swallowed hard. And you said nothing. Ethan dragged a hand through his hair, visibly shaken by her words. God, Maya, you're right. I should have said something. You just what? She whispered. Didn't want to make a scene? Didn't want to upset your perfect fiancé? Didn't want to offend someone beneath you? That's not how I see you, he said urgently. That's not who you are to me. Then who am I, Ethan? Someone you used to know? Someone you barely noticed? Someone whose name you didn't remember until you stared long enough. He opened his mouth, closed it, and the silence between them answered the question for him. After a long moment, Ethan spoke, voice barely above a whisper. You matter, Maya, more than you think. Her breath hitched, but before she could respond, Victoria's shrill voice echoed down the hall. Ethan, what on earth are you doing back here? He stepped away from Maya instantly. Too quickly, like being seen next to her was wrong, like she was a mistake. The look on Victoria's face when she saw them together was venomous. She didn't need words. Her glare said everything. Trash, competition, threat. Maya lowered her gaze and stepped back into the service room before either of them could say a word. The turning point. Hours later, the gala wound down. Guests left with full bellies, satisfied egos, and the luxury of forgetting the people who had served them all night. Except Ethan. He couldn't forget. Not for a second. He found himself searching the corridors, the service stations, the exit hallways, anywhere she might be finishing her shift. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by guilt, confusion, and memories he hadn't realized still had teeth. He finally found her outside, near the staff exit, removing her apron as cold night air blew gently against her face. Her shoulders slumped with exhaustion, physical and emotional. Can we talk? He asked softly. She didn't turn. There's nothing left to say. There's everything left to say. She inhaled shakily. Please don't do this. Do what? Act like you understand my world. You don't. You never will. Ethan stepped closer, but not too close. Teach me, then. She stiffened. He continued, voice raw. I don't want to be the man who stays silent when you're hurt. I don't want to be the man who lets people belittle you. And I don't want to be the man who forgets where he came from or who he forgets along with it. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away fiercely. Words are easy. His next words came from a deeper place than he intended. Then I'll prove it. Maya shook her head. You can't. You're engaged. Ethan, your life is set. I'm not stepping into the middle of that. A beat of silence. Then quietly, I'm not in love with her. Her heart stopped, and because she wasn't ready for the weight of those words, she whispered, don't say things you can't take back. Ethan swallowed, chest rising and falling with a storm inside him. I only say what I mean. But Maya stepped back, her voice trembling. This cannot happen. Why not? Because people like you, she whispered, don't end up with people like me. Now he flinched. But, she continued softly, You might end up hurting someone like me." Ethan opened his mouth, but at that exact moment, a door slammed behind them. Victoria. Her eyes were ice. Her smile, invisible. Her rage, barely contained. "Well," she said dangerously, "isn't this interesting?" Maya's stomach dropped. This was going to get ugly. The confrontation that broke the perfect world. And the moment he could no longer pretend. Victoria's heels clicked sharply against the concrete as she stepped toward them, each step sounding like a hammer striking the fragile glass of Ethan's carefully constructed life. Maya froze, tray still clutched weakly in her hand, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the wind. Victoria's expression was impossibly calm, too calm. The kind of dangerous calm that meant the explosion had already happened inside her. Now she was simply choosing where to aim the flames. "So," she began, her voice quiet and razor-sharp. "This is what you've been doing? Sneaking away from our engagement party. To what? Flirt with the staff?" Her gaze sliced toward Maya like a blade dipped in poison. Maya didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't apologize. She simply stood there with quiet strength, even as her world trembled. Ethan stepped forward immediately, voice steady. "Victoria, stop. Stop." Victoria laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh no, Ethan, you don't get to tell me to stop. Not when half the board members already noticed you were missing. Not when people have started whispering about you disappearing with a catering girl." The word girl was spat out like something dirty. Maya inhaled slowly, willing her heart not to crack. "Victoria," Ethan warned again, "you're out of line." "Out of line." Her voice rose. "I am trying to protect your reputation. Our future. Our name." "My reputation," Ethan said sharply, "does not depend on belittling someone." Victoria laughed again, louder this time. "Oh, please, don't act like you care. You didn't even recognize her until 10 minutes ago. Don't pretend you're some hero now." Maya swallowed hard, the truth hitting with brutal accuracy. She turned away. "I should go." Ethan stepped forward quickly. "Maya, wait." Victoria's eyes widened. "You're choosing her over me?" "No," he said firmly. "I am stopping you from humiliating her." "Oh, please." Victoria threw her hands up. "She's staff. She's beneath us, Ethan. Don't act like she's some fragile princess who needs rescue." Maya closed her eyes. There it was, the truth of how they saw her, how the entire room earlier saw her, how society saw girls like her, invisible until mocked, silent until provoked, and never allowed to raise their voice. But she was done being silent. Maya stepped forward with a quiet fire in her voice. "I don't need anyone to rescue me, especially not you." Ethan and Victoria both turned to her in surprise. Maya continued, voice low but unwavering. "I've survived things that neither of you would last a week in. I work hard, not because I enjoy being insulted by people who think wealth equals worth, but because my mother depends on me. I do everything I can to live with dignity, even when people treat me like I shouldn't exist in their world." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Spare us the emotional speech." "No," Ethan snapped suddenly, turning toward Victoria. "You spare yourself. Stop talking." Victoria's mouth hung open. Ethan's voice lowered, more intense than Maya had ever heard him speak. "She has more dignity in her smallest gesture than you have shown your entire life." Silence. Cold. Deadly. Absolute. Victoria stiffened, her jaw tightening as anger flared in her eyes. "Are you seriously defending her over me? Ethan, you're being ridiculous. She's manipulating you." "She didn't come to me," Ethan said. "I went to her." Victoria's face drained of color. "And why?" she hissed. "Would you go to her?" Ethan hesitated. A storm of emotions crossed his face. Regret, shame, memory, longing, conflict. Finally he spoke, his voice low but honest. "Because she matters." Maya's throat tightened painfully. Victoria's eyes snapped from Ethan to Maya with venom. "You!" she hissed, stepping closer as if ready to attack. "You think you can walk in here and ruin everything I've worked for?" You think cheap sympathy and a pretty face can steal Ethan away? Women like you. Don't, Maya warned softly. Don't finish that sentence. And for the first time, Victoria froze, caught off guard by the quiet authority in Maya's voice. Ethan stepped protectively between them. This conversation is over. Victoria stared at him, shaking in fury. It's over all right. Our engagement is over. Ethan blinked. Victoria. No, she snapped, looking wildly around as if the world was falling apart. I won't be embarrassed like this. Not by you, and not because of her. She turned toward Maya with a final, vicious glare. You will regret this. Then she spun on her heel and stormed inside the hotel. Maya let out a shaky breath. She didn't realize she'd been holding. Ethan remained still, staring after Victoria, chest heaving with the weight of what had just happened. Maya spoke first. Go after her. Ethan turned sharply. What? Go after her, she repeated. Fix things. You're engaged. You have responsibilities. Ethan, he shook his head slowly, running a trembling hand through his hair. You don't understand. Our engagement was arranged, Maya finished softly. Everyone knows. But still, she's part of your world. And what if I don't want that world anymore? He whispered. Her breath caught, but she forced her voice to stay calm. Ethan, you're overwhelmed. Your emotions are reacting to guilt and nostalgia. Don't confuse them. It's not nostalgia, he said sharply. It's regret. Maya blinked. Regret. For what he became. For forgetting her. For not standing up sooner. For letting himself be shaped by people who didn't know the real him. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. I shouldn't have let them speak to you like that. I shouldn't have stayed silent. I shouldn't have forgotten who I was before the suits and the money. And I sure as hell shouldn't have let you walk away from me 15 years ago. Maya shook her head slowly. We were children. And yet, he said, eyes locked on hers, you've stayed in my memory all this time. She froze. He took another step. And now that I've seen you again, I can't unsee you. Her pulse raced. The air between them charged with tension. Soft, painful, dangerous. But Maya lifted her chin, voice steady even though her heart threatened to fall apart. None of that matters, Ethan. Not unless you change how you see people like me. He stopped, hit by the truth. The real truth. Not about love. Not about childhood memories. Not about attraction. About character. About who he was and who he wanted to be. Maya stepped back, her eyes gentle but firm. Go home, Ethan. Think. Decide who you are, without the tuxedo, without the money, without the world telling you what to be. And if I choose differently? He whispered. She let out a breath that trembled slightly. Then you'll know where to find me. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to say more, to promise something, to close the distance between them. But Maya turned away, stepping into the dim staff exit doorway. As she did, Ethan's voice broke softly behind her. Maya. She paused, heartbeat aching. He spoke with raw vulnerability, barely holding himself together. I promised myself I'd never fall in love again. And tonight, for the first time in years, I'm terrified that promise is already broken. Maya closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't turn around. She couldn't, because if she did, everything would change too fast. So she whispered, "Good night, Ethan," and walked into the night. Ethan stood alone, breath visible in the cold air, feeling the weight of a world that no longer fit him, and a woman who saw him more clearly than anyone ever had. When the world turned against her, he finally chose the truth, and one kiss broke every promise he ever made. 3 days. 3 long, heavy days passed after the engagement gala. Days filled with silence, whispers, and fallout Maya never expected to be dragged into. She returned to work like nothing had happened. She moved through her shifts with quiet dignity, greeting customers, cleaning tables, carrying trays. But people stared. People whispered. The story had spread faster than wildfire. She was the girl who ruined the Aldridge engagement. A rumor cruelly reshaped, sharpened, and aimed directly at her. She seduced him. She trapped him. She threw herself at him. The stories multiplied. each one uglier than the last. Her supervisor pulled her aside on the second day. "We're getting complaints, Maya. Some board members called. They said you disrespected guests." "I didn't," Maya said quietly. "You know I didn't." He sighed helplessly. "I know, but this is Ethan Aldridge's crowd. We can't afford trouble." The implication cut deeper than any insult. She wasn't important enough to fight for, not against people with money, not against people with influence, not against a world she had never been allowed to enter. So she lowered her gaze, nodded once, and accepted her temporary suspension without protest, because she needed the job, but more than anything, she needed her integrity. She refused to beg. She refused to defend herself to people who had already decided she was a villain. But inside, a quiet storm grew. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan was unraveling. 3 days of reporters calling. 3 days of shareholders panicking. 3 days of Victoria's family threatening to sever business contracts. 3 days of his parents demanding he fix the embarrassment. But none of that consumed him. What consumed him was Maya's face when she walked away. The quiet strength, the disappointment, the pain she tried so hard to hide. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't pretend. For the first time in years, Ethan Aldridge wasn't thinking like a businessman. He was thinking like a human being who had failed someone who deserved better. On the third morning, he made a decision. A real one. The kind that changes a life. He grabbed his coat and keys, ignored the buzzing phone, and headed straight to her workplace. The scene that broke his last excuse. Maya was sitting outside the catering service building, hugging her coat tighter as a cold breeze swept through the alley. She was waiting for her bus, chin tucked into her scarf, exhaustion etched into every line of her body. Ethan approached quietly, breath fogging in the cold air. "Maya." She froze. Slowly, she looked up. Her eyes widened slightly, then softened into something unreadable. "Ethan, you shouldn't be here." "I know," he said breathlessly, "but I needed to see you." Maya stood, lifting her chin with the dignity that defined her. "Whatever you came to say, it's better if you don't. Your world is already complicated enough." "Because of me," he said. "Because I didn't defend you." Maya looked away. He stepped closer, but not too close, giving her the space she always deserved. "I talked to your supervisor," he said quietly. "I told him the truth. I told him none of what happened was your fault. I told him you were treated unfairly." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, you didn't have to." "I did," he cut in. "I should have the night it happened." She swallowed hard. The silence stretched. Then she asked, barely above a whisper, "Did it fix anything?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "He said they'll call you back tomorrow, and that he's sorry." A shaky breath left her. Relief, validation, but also wariness, because apology or not, damage had been done. To her job, to her dignity, to her peace. She wrapped her coat tighter. "Thank you." "No," he said, voice soft. "Don't thank me. I should have done it sooner." She looked at him then, really looked. "For what it's worth," he added, "Victoria and I ended everything." Her heartbeat stuttered. She stepped back slightly, shaking her head. "Ethan, don't ruin your life because of a misunderstanding." A sad smile touched his lips. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a mistake. A very long, very cold mistake. Her eyes softened painfully. "So what now?" she whispered. He stepped forward, voice trembling. "I'm not here to pressure you. I'm not here to make promises I'm not ready to keep. I'm here because I forgot the person I used to be. And seeing you, hearing you, woke something in me." She held her breath. He continued. "You said I didn't know your world. You were right." She blinked. "And you said I needed to decide who I am without the money, without the image, without the expectations." He took another step. "I know the answer now." Her lips parted, but no words came. "Maya," he whispered, "I want to be someone worthy of standing beside you, not above you." Her throat tightened. Wind brushed between them, ruffling her hair, carrying the faint scent of winter. She whispered, "People will talk. Let them. You'll lose business. I'll rebuild. You'll disappoint many people. I've disappointed myself far too long. Maya's eyes filled with tears, not the weak kind, but the kind born from finally being seen. Why me, Ethan? He didn't hesitate. Because you're the only person I've ever met who doesn't want anything from me, except for me to be human. The words unraveled something deep inside her. Maya, he said softly, I promised myself I'd never fall in love again. I promised I'd never trust anyone with the parts of me I keep hidden. I promised I'd never let my heart choose someone who could hurt me. He stepped closer. But then I remembered you. She turned slightly, tears slipping down her cheeks. And now, he whispered, the only promise I want to break is the promise I made to myself. Silence. Then Maya spoke, voice trembling. Ethan, he lifted a hand slowly, gently, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. With the lightest touch, he wiped one tear from her cheek. Her breath hitched. Then Ethan lowered his forehead to hers, eyes closed, speaking into the tiny space that separated them. I don't want to run from this anymore. She inhaled shakily. And I don't want you running from yourself, she whispered. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Those familiar, childhood eyes. Maya, he said, voice breaking, can I? But he didn't finish, because she leaned in first. A soft kiss, a slow kiss, a kiss filled with everything they had swallowed for years. Fear, longing, pain, memory, and a kind of fragile hope that felt too big for the space between them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. It wasn't polished like the world he came from. It was real,